tomorrow. Okay, Mom.
Here's a little story that I'm about to tell you. And I don't know where to start it, and I don't know how to end it, but here we go. My head's spinning round and round the room. I really don't know what to do, but I want you to notice me back. What if you like me? I want you to see you're my one in a million. My whole world just wants to be with you. Need or is it?
Dearest Betty, yesterday I visited Holton Cemetery. 27 Seaforths are buried there.
I was very moved to see many local Dutch people in the cemetery. They had placed at least one flower at the base of each of the 1,355 Canadian crosses. So many lost. A large group gathered around, coming forward to shake our hands or embrace us, and joined us in paying respects to our fallen Seaforths. How endlessly thankful all the Dutch we've met seem for their liberation. It continues to touch our hearts. Driving back into Amsterdam, we were greeted again by waving and cheering, men, women, and children. Seeing those happy faces turned my thoughts to you, my darling. The war is over. I don't know when yet, but soon we will be together, and I will hear the sweet sound of your voice again. All my love, Alan.
On the 1st of May, which was within a week of the cessation of hostilities, the 5th Canadian Armoured Division attacked Def Seal, and what my father did was canvass the troops and get them to agree to go in without artillery support, knowing that the war was almost over, but knowing that the Dutch were starving and this would be a great access point to bring in food. And the Canadian soldiers agreed. They went in and captured Def Seal with considerable number of casualties. When I got to Def Seal and saw the monuments to the Canadians, that was, I think, the most touching part of my pilgrimage back to Holland.
I went one day to one of the large cemeteries, and that was the most moving sight, to see these endless rows of graves with the names of Canadian soldiers, and these young boys were 22 to 25-year-old. And to think that they had come to liberate us, it was an unbelievable moment of recognition, of gratitude.
I guess it'd be about 10 years ago now. I went there and they asked me to speak about Canadians liberating the camp. After I finished speaking, this Dutchman rushed over and clasped me and kissed me on each cheek, and he was crying. And he said he was 4 years old when he and his father and his mother were put into that camp, and we saved their lives.
In Holland, you celebrate May the 5th. But before May the 5th, it's May the 4th in the evening, 8 o'clock. That is the remembrance of people that died during the war. There's 2 minutes silence because there's no Remembrance Day in Holland because Holland was a neutral in the World War I. So we never had November the 11th. So that became our Remembrance Day. And then May the 5th was Liberation Day. And that was something else, I tell you.
The people in Holland, I have to tell you, appreciated the simple fact that we Canadians were there to liberate tyranny, pain, hunger, suffering. And that was one facet of the experience that made it worthwhile. And it wasn't a token, it was more.
Dearest Betty, 19 days ago we saw our first combat in Holland.
Crossing the IJssel River. So wide we went over aboard buffaloes, a big amphibious craft, rather than just waiting or paddling little boats across. 3 days of heavy fighting cost us some good men. Then, the Germans faded away. I took a patrol into Clarenbeek, my first real contact with the Dutch, and boy, it was something. Imagine it. A dozen soldiers come into a village, fearing an ambush. And suddenly, we're surrounded all right, by a wild, ecstatic throng, crazily happy to see us. "You are our liberators," one man yelled in English, while clapping me on the back. Yesterday, BC's Lieutenant Governor William Woodward visited the regiment, and I was among the 50-man honor guard he inspected. The pipe band started playing, but heavy rain cut the performance short. Weather miserable right now, but spirits are good. All my love, Alan.
The infantry was one branch of the army where you were in action. The orders were advance until you encounter enemy fire. That means keep going till you get shot at. In a place called Hudi in Germany, we got caught in a crossfire, and there was barbed wire in front, and you tried to get under the barbed wire, which I did, and the steel helmet got caught in the barbed wire, and that means you're a target for a sniper.
The war really changed when the Allies crossed the Rhine in Germany. We were told, oh boy, there's going to be a tank battle, we better hide. And there was a little castle, and we go in the basement, and you wait there, and you hear all the tank shooting back and forth, and you wait, and we got through that all right, you know.
We were starting to go up the Scheldt, and we had just crossed the canal, and the shelling started, and it hit a group of trees, and we were shattered with shrapnel. And I got a whole bunch here in this leg, and strangely enough, a piece about as long as a knitting needle and about as thick, and it went endwise in here. And I didn't know it, but a piece went in my chest too.
Germany was so terribly bombarded every night, and my brother and I, we would always go to the attic and look out of the little window we had there in the attic. We could hear the Tommies coming over all the time. That you know, what you hear in the and what's, or maybe it's going to be a fight, because so once in a while you had an air fight.
When they dropped bombs, you know, how many people did they kill? I don't know. We carried 14,000 pounds each trip. A hell of a lot of people that hit. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying it had to be done because that was the only way we were going to stop the German people and the Hitler.
I went to an elementary school that had 300 students. 200 of them were Jewish. And all of them were told, as of 42, to go to the center of Amsterdam. They were supposed to go to one school so that the Nazis could pick them up easily. But of course, it was a well-to-do neighborhood where parents immediately all went underground.
There were so many Jewish people, you know, there were a lot of them that had come from Germany to get away from Hitler and all. So you had Jewish people all around, but never gave it a thought that I was half Jewish myself and all that thing, you know, and that made it a lot harder down the road. Across the street from us, there was a Jewish family. They had a little shop there, and one morning you wake up and there's a big seal on the door, so you know they've gone. And in the beginning, of course, you didn't know anything about the gas chambers and concentration camps. You just knew that they were sent to a camp, you know.
We went across in a place called Emden in Germany, and then we made a left turn and went up the river to the Dutch border. We started it up through the forest, and there was the Dutch concentration camp. It was just dawn, and the Germans were coming out of the front of that headquarters house, and we rushed forward and captured it and them. The Germans inside the house saw what was happening, and they ran away out the back of the door, and we heard vehicles start up, and they disappeared into the distance. We had liberated Camp Westerbork.
I cannot say that I have good stories because there is too much sorrow. What we have seen when the Jewish people were all taken, you know, people out of our street. That's hard. I wouldn't like my children to see that. No. No. Too many sad stories.
Dearest Betty, we are no longer moving, so writing is easier.
We're in front of the Grebe line, originally built by the Dutch to defend the big cities and now used by the Germans. Colonel Bill Irving says they number about 100,000, but neither side wants to fight. Rumor mill reports secret negotiations to convince the Germans here to surrender. The situation is a bit eerie, reminiscent of the last months in Italy, where we spent winter with the Germans across the Senio River from us. There, we're just yards apart. Here, a couple miles separate us. A few woods and lots of farmland. We patrolled out there, and the Germans did the same. But mostly, we kept out of each other's way. There's a feeling this is going to end soon. We all want to go home, and I want nothing more than to come back to you, my darling. All my love, Alan.
There was nothing allowed. Only the musicians who were willing to sign on to being a member of the Kulturkammer, so that they were, in a sense, saying that they agreed with the Nazis. So there was really no official concert, only things that the Nazis put on. So, and I started piano lessons. My friend and I decided to cheer up our parents at the end of maybe 2 years of lessons, and give a little concert. And afterwards, of course, we laughed because it must have been excruciating to listen to, but at least that was our contribution to a little levity.
My parents knew that I liked music. They said, well, you should take some accordion lessons, and not far off here there is a music school. So went down to music school, you know, and with a young teacher. We knew each other very well. And then there was a concert in downtown The Hague, and he says to myself and quite a few of the other pupils, you know, you should go and see real professionals. Well, I was supposed to see him about 2 days later, and there was a big lock on the door there. And I found later out from the secretary that he had never show up again after, so he was probably sent to Germany as a slave labor. That's why men that were not Jewish landed up, including later on my brother, you know.
So in February, we started an attack through the Reichswald forest between Holland and Germany, going to the town of Cleve. We started up through the Reichswald forest, and we were singing, going to hang out the washing on the Siegfried line as we were going through there. And we got along a little further, and there's a pair of dirty underwear. And it was the washing on the old Siegfried line. And we sang it all the way into Cleve.
If that Siegfried line is still there.
I flew with a cold. I didn't realize that a cold would give you pneumonia if you kept it up, and I kept it up, and I ended up getting pneumonia. That separated me from my crew. I was sorry to lose them because they were a good bunch. They got all the way through to their 26th trip, and they were shot down. Fortunately, I wasn't with them. The only person that got out of it was the bomb aimer, and he's up in the nose, and he had a hatch right there, and all the window was on fire. They dumped it out, and he got out, only one.
We came into a little town that was called Dottenham, and we came into the town, and it was natural for all the people to come out to appreciate the freedom that they were about to get. But it was the worst thing in the world because the Germans had just pulled out, and they took their 105 with them, and they had everything zeroed in. And then they started to shell. And when you start shelling, the obvious place to go is underground. So where the hell do you head for? You head for the basement. And I had a buddy that I went through basic training with him. And his name was Brown, and he was from Lloydminster, Alberta. And he was 6 foot. I was a little guy, like 5'7", 8. And he tried to get into the basement, but he couldn't get in. It was full of civilians and some troops, and he stood on the staircase because he couldn't get in, and he got shrapnel through the head.
Well, we came along the shoreline for quite a distance, particularly through Belgium. And then we moved into the Antwerp-Turnhout Canal area, which goes between Belgium and Holland. And we had quite a battle getting over that, and that's where my company commander saved my life. I was carrying a radio, and we were advancing into this village, and the commanding officer said, "He's not clearing the houses. He's leading us into a trap." So he jumped up from the ditch where we had been sitting, watching what was going on with the 3 platoons. And I got up to follow him, and he saved my life. He said, "No, you stay here." And he rushed forward, and no one from that forward platoon came back.
can't sleep at night. It makes me wanna be there to tuck you in tight, make light of something not so light, 'cause you're too mad to care and too tired to fight. Behind your eyes lies a dark blue goodbye. Holding it in with you inside. Uncoat your armor and tear down the walls. You're just another wounded soldier trying not to fall. Another wounded soldier trying not to fall. Falling into my arms, falling. I know where you've been. Then you see love lives inside the enemy. Do you see more of who you thought you could be? Please share your Purple Heart stories with me. Falling in love is the greatest act of bravery. Behind your eyes lies a dark blue goodbye. Holding it in just wilts you inside. Uncoat your armor and tear down the walls. You're just another wounded soldier trying not to fall. Another wounded soldier trying not to fall. Falling into my arms, falling. Falling into my arms, falling. I'll help you up again. So you fall with all your might, and so you fall in love with all your might.
Dearest Betty, remarkable events today, my love.
I've already mentioned the desperate state the people here face with too few farms to feed the large population, crowded into the cities, and the normal supply chain in ruins. The Dutch call these past months the hunger winter. When you see how thin and frail everyone seems to be from malnutrition, it's easy to see why. Today, however, Canadian trucks rolled through the Grebe line in timed convoys of 30 at a time. Each truck overflowed with food and medical supplies. Called Operation Faust, 12 convoys passed through in 30-minute phases and nearly took all day. By agreement, the Boche stood down and let the convoy through unmolested to a depot where German soldiers helped the Dutch unload them. Overhead, Canadian and British bombers droned past. I watched packets of food tumble from their bomb bays instead of explosives. Although I'm not involved, it's heartening to see our soldiers and flyers saving lives rather than taking them. All my love, Alan.
So when you see people that are starving, that have no source of sustenance, even to the point of where they eat tulip bulbs, that is something that when you experience it, you never forget it.
I was fortunate that I was on the farm, but I had seen before I left The Hague that you know, it was terrible. You're hungry all day. And you had those coupon books, you know, 100 gram is good for this and that for that. But you might go to the store and they haven't got it. And the loaves of bread they had that wasn't real, I don't know what the flour they used. And so you're hungry, so I knew pretty well what hunger was.
There was the little harbor in the center of town, and we started to clear the Dutch houses that were facing the harbor. And after we had finished that, we went further through town and we came out on the road that leads into Germany, and we stopped there. And there is a town square there. And in that town square, there is a dead horse lying in one corner of it. And he had been killed by a bomb or something, the horse. And the next morning, we went out, and the only thing left of that horse was the hoof, because the Dutch were very hungry. And they had taken that horse away to eat it. And that's when we realized just how hungry the Dutch were.
It was about May 10th or something, like 9th or 10th. So they just told us you're flying to Holland. What we're going to do in Holland? Drop bombs? You know, they don't tell you anything. Not even the skipper knew what was going on. But we found out there was food instead of bombs, because we didn't know what was in the bomb bay. We weren't until we came back, and then we found all of what was going on.
There were special Red Cross areas set aside where the food would be dropped. I was allowed to go to the roof of our apartment building, which is in Holland. That's an immense... to see these immense planes come over and drop Swedish margarine with the Blue Cross and loaves of white bread. It was a very strange time to have no food other than what came down from the heavens.
Dearest Betty, today we liberated Amsterdam. Oh, not a shot was fired.
Instead, we Seaforth just rolled in. About 1,000 of us, and the city's entire 800,000 people were waiting. For 4 miles, thousands upon thousands lined the streets. Flowers, roses, tulips showered us. Children, women, old men, all clambered onto our vehicles until no canvas or metal showed. An old lady handed me a bouquet of flowers. "Thank God at last you've come," she sobbed. That's when I saw how thin she was. And they started to talk, pouring out a story of anguish and suffering, terrible food shortages, half a loaf of bread and a pound of potatoes for a week. Thousands have died. As we crept through the surging crowds, by the hundreds, they spontaneously sang the Dutch national anthem. Here and there, people broke out instruments, but mostly it was just voices. Glorious, free, war over. All my love, Alan.
Oh, it was amazing when they would come through a village. Often the Germans had left, so the Dutch would be out there with their flags and just waiting for the troops to come in.
The night before the Canadians came in, the Germans were so busy. They were burning things, papers burning and everything. There were all everywhere little fires. And the Germans disappeared. So the next morning, we were all wild. We would ride away on the streets and we wanted to be on the corner where the guys came. So that truck came through and just climbed on the truck. I don't know how I got the thing in my hand. I didn't even know they took the picture.
That happened every town you went into. So it wasn't as if the mayor was there to greet you as a visitor. It was the people themselves that had the emotion, and they had the ability to express that emotion after they had suffered for so long under the German occupation.
The streets were lined and lined with people, and the soldiers just couldn't believe the incredible reception that they got. So they threw chocolates and gum and whatever, you know, they had to everybody. And everything was a treat because we hadn't seen anything. It was really a moment that you never forget.
After the war ended, there were lots of parades. We had a parade in town as thank you to the Dutch people for looking after us. We were in Dutch houses there. And the Dutch all were out there wiping their tears away.
The first night that the troops had moved in, I was leaning out the window of my little room and I heard music, you know. And there was a music school not too far off, and they were playing some pretty good songs now, you know. That what I could recognize was 12th Street Rag, you know, and I thought, boy, we're free.
We'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I'm sure we'll meet again some sunny day. Keep smiling through, just like you always do. Till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long. They'll be happy to know that as you saw me go, I was singing this song. We'll meet again.
just like you always do.
Till the blue skies drive the dark clouds far away. So will you please say hello to the folks that I know? Tell them I won't be long.
They'll be happy to know that when you saw me go, I was singing this song.
Will